every year towards the end of the year, I try to do this style of video where I talk about the trends over the past year and also my trends going into the new year. So today we're going to be talking about Korean beauty trends I think are going to be popular in 2025. Nowadays, I think when it comes to any industry, you can't go anywhere without talking about AI, and I think the prevalence of AI is just going to grow in the beauty industry. Specifically in Korea, we're seeing a lot of the larger Korean beauty conglomerates discussing AI and developing software and hardware around AI. And so some of the more predominant companies that I've seen kind of dabble in this through the past year is Amore Pacific. Now, Amore Pacific, if you're not familiar, owns like 30 plus brands plus their own brand. So they're pretty big in Korea. And because of that, they have access to a lot of capital, which means more access to R&D and innovation. And this past year, I saw Reuters come out with this article discussing some of the developments Amore Pacific has been participating in as far as AI goes. One of the things that they've developed is this like foundation mixing machine, which I think looks really cool. It is not lost on me the irony of a Korean beauty company engaging in a product or a service that's supposed to offer a more expansive range of foundation shades. But I'm someone who's always here for progress, and sometimes progress doesn't happen overnight. So I'm excited to see that they're moving in the right direction as far as offering more shades. And on top of that, I think kind of looking back at 2024 and some of the trends that we saw become very popular on social media were things like color analysis, which I believe originated in Korea, as well as undertones and the discussion of how many different skin tones there truly are. So with something like this, I'm hoping that the future is being able to access foundation shades and just makeup shades in general that are perfectly suited towards your skin tone. And I think nowadays, customers are more aware of that, so I am fascinated to see where this goes. And I definitely think that the idea of AI in beauty is basically endless. Now, you guys may or may not know this, but I do a lot of consulting work behind the scenes with Eastern companies trying to emerge into Western markets. My degree is actually in business and marketing, and so I a lot of times will look at things from like a business perspective. So another thing that I think is very interesting with the discussion of AI is how does this apply back to the companies and maximizing profitability? And of course, besides having makeup and products that are going to match and suit you best, they're also going to be using it to make product recommendations based on their own line. So that means looking at your undertone, skin tone, whatever, and selecting products from their range to recommend as a like customized product in a sense, or a customized choice. So curation. So I also think curation in general is going to be a big feature when it comes to beauty companies and the future of really a customer or a consumer feeling like they're engaging personally with companies and businesses. But I also think with that is kind of like the ethos of a brand in general is becoming more and more important. And I think as consumers are being more selective with the companies that they're engaging with, I think the ethos or the idea of engaging with indie brands, more smaller companies, is becoming more popular. And so I've also kind of seen this really interesting shift from like bigger brands to smaller brands, or even bigger brands acting as smaller brands in like shell companies almost. So I am definitely thinking that we're going to see an emergence of indie brands, whether or not they truly are indie or not. I've just seen a lot of brands, like for example, Fui was a big one that I saw this year become popular on social media. Another one that I can think of off the top of my head would be like Nimbuzen. So some of these smaller companies really capturing a lot of the attention of consumers because they do have kind of like that smaller company vibe. Larger brands are starting to lose some of their market share, and so I'm also curious to see how this is going to evolve over time, because I think we're just going to see more predominance of smaller and indie brands with popularity and less so with the bigger brands. When it comes to like buzzwords and popular ingredients, I've noticed a very common ingredient recently towards the end of 2024, and I think it's going to just demonstrate the prevalence of this idea. And that ingredient or buzzword is PDRN, which stands for polydeoxyribonucleotide. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but essentially it's salmon DNA, and the idea behind salmon DNA with skincare is that it's very similar to human DNA. So you might have seen this, again, kind of a newer skin treatment that's popular in Korea, becoming popular here in the United States for providers that offer it, but it's these salmon DNA injections into the skin or using it topically on the skin because it's supposed to help with collagen synthesis and also elasticity and just anti-aging in general. So now that I'm seeing that treatment become more popular, I have just noticed a ton of companies come out with their own PDRN style products to use topically at home. And this is not only just like the bigger brands, like Iope I saw has one, and Innisfree. Both of those are under that Amore Pacific brand. But also, again, these indie brands are coming out with it. I know I've seen Medicube is a very popular one I've seen on TikTok recently, but there are so many companies and brands that have this style of product. So I actually have a couple coming on the way. I'm gonna try them out and kind of decide if I think that they're effective topically or not, or kind of get my ideas together. But let me know in the comment section if you have tried these products and your thoughts on them in general. And like I said, I do think a lot of times history rhymes when it comes to forecasting trends. So I think this is gonna kind of move towards having products that have more bioavailable style products or bio-identical, these concepts where it's thought that since they're similar to maybe components or compounds found in like human skin, that they will kind of act as the same thing when applied to human skin, if that makes sense. So I don't know what that particularly means. I'm not a scientist, nor do I have like any background in like chemical formulations. But I also think that like to a layperson, that makes sense. But I do think that in 2025, we're gonna see even more products with ingredients kind of along the same vein. Speaking of buzzwords, another buzzword that I have noticed recently is around the idea of blackheads, and that is blackhead softening or blackhead melting. I noticed a couple products that have rose in popularity on these beauty consumer awards lists that feature these kind of buzzword names. And blackheads are something that I feel like everyone's kind of always fighting because, you know, they kind of always exist in the skin if you're more prone to them, but there are ways to treat it topically. And we saw Cosrx had their blackhead treatment solution, whatever the specific name of that is. And that was popular because I feel like it said specifically what it did, the purpose of it and the function. So I think if you're someone who's active in the skincare world, that's going to be something that's appealing to you. But that had a BHA as the chemical exfoliant in it. Some of the newer products that I've seen featuring the buzzword melting or softening when it comes to blackheads have a slightly different chemical exfoliant in it. So again, I have a couple of these on the way that I'm excited to try out. I think just like visually, the idea of like melting blackheads or softening blackheads is very like follows that satisfying theme. And so like I said, I have seen some of them get popular in Korea that feature these buzzwords. So I think we're gonna see this here in the West. I think, obviously I'm biased, but I do think that Korea is a big indicator of what's gonna be popular in the beauty industry in general as a whole. So that's something that I also think is gonna become more popular in 2025. The last trend that I wanted to talk about that I think is just going to grow in 2025 because it has absolutely boomed in 2024 is the emergence of more fragrances. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but in 2024, I feel like fragrances are everywhere now. Now, back in the day, it felt like you'd have like one or two, but this whole idea of having a signature fragrance or something, again, that's more custom and personal to you has encouraged a lot of these companies to come up with their own like signature scents or customized mixable style fragrances. I think I made a similar prediction last year, and I was talking about some of the more niche fragrance houses in Korea. And if I thought of some of those on the top of my head, it would be Tambudin, it would have been Nonfiction, and Born to Stand Out. But when I was looking at it in research for this video, there are so many niche fragrance houses in Korea I've never heard of that must have popped up recently, like within the past year. So I think we're gonna see even more of this in the future. I also think we're gonna see more of these Korean fragrance houses become more popular here in the States because I have seen kind of Born to Stand Out pop up on some of my favorite social media platforms as like recommendations. They feature these like exclusive ingredients or notes in them. So that has been something very interesting because not only have I seen it kind of on social media as a whole, but I personally have gone so much more into fragrances, and I definitely have engaged in the idea of having a signature fragrance. So I think, again, kind of like I was discussing earlier in the video with the popularity of more indie brands, we're gonna see even more of these kind of like indie niche fragrance houses become more mainstream. And so again, that's something that I always welcome because I'm someone who firmly believes in competition in saturated markets in the sense of the consumer wins because you have more options, they're competing against each other. So there has to be kind of like a element that they have above each other, whether that's price point, quality, ingredients, branding, something that's going to make them stand out. I am gonna have to dip my toes into more of these fragrance houses in Korea. I have tried nonfiction, which is pleasant, but I need to try more. So again, let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have tried any of these niche fragrance houses in Korea, because I need some recommendations. I have no idea where to start. So anyways, guys, that is kind of like my trend forecast as far as some of the trends I think are gonna be popular going into 2025. If you guys have any trends or forecasts of your own, please leave it in the comment section below. I love reading your guys' comments and kind of having like a roundtable discussion with you guys, because you guys have a lot of insights of your own. So I will be very curious to see what you guys have to say. As always, I hope you guys are happy and healthy, and don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, share with friends and family, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.